something to do. We gotta do something bigger than this. Let's go.
I'm about to give them 250 inside a Hellcat. We was serving niggas them pounds out the mail back. Finally poppin', put my baby mama in Chanel back.
I went from nothing to lose to too much to lose. Almost said fucking and walked away from it, but I just got too much to prove. Might hit up touches and blow a few thousand just cause it's something to do. Always the one that you run to. This time I ain't gonna be humble. This time I ain't gonna be humble.
What is up, guys? Marcellus Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. Today is Wednesday, March 2nd, and we are officially 14 weeks out from Nationals. More specifically, as of right now, this could change, but as of right now, we are 14 weeks out from competing at Nationals prime time for the 75 kg weight class. And that's because even though I didn't quite hit what I wanted to at this past meet, as far as hitting like 700 kg or more to kind of solidify my prime time spot, as of right now, with everyone signed up for Nationals in my weight class, I'm still ranked like number 3 or 4. So as of right now, I'm still in prime time. That might change depending on who signs up or, you know, what totals people hit. They've tried to requalify to bump their total up. We'll see, but as of right now, that's where we're at. But regardless if I'm in prime time or not, we're 14 weeks out, and my goals have not changed in terms of my goals to still finish top 10, if not top 5, and actually podium at Nationals. That's still what I plan to do. My confidence to do that has not been shaken just because of how this past meet went. If anything, I'm more on fire than ever. You know, Sunday, just drove back down from San Antonio. It's about a 4-hour drive between San Antonio and the DFW area. Just kind of chilled, relaxed, recharged. Then Monday, you know, had a really good in-depth check-in with my coach Brad Couillard, so we can really discuss the full meet, breaking everything down, what went well, what we can do better, and have the full plan laid out for the next 14 weeks, which we already do. And you know, today, like I said, is pretty much day 1. So today will be my going forward, Wednesdays will be my primary SBD day. So the structure of how everything is, day 1 being SBD, day 2 secondary intensity bench, day 3 secondary squat, day 4 tertiary bench, day 5 tertiary squat, secondary pull, and then day 6 quaternary bench. The order and structure of my programming is still the same. But since I compete on a Wednesday, we are now shifting things to where my primary SBD days are on Wednesday. So today is day 1 of prep, essentially. On Monday, all I did training-wise was just some easy lower body accessory work just to get some movement, some active recovery. And then yesterday, I did the same thing for upper body. So today, we're officially back on program. And what I want to do with this video specifically is, as I go through each lift, kind of talk to you guys about what I've learned and from, you know, the prep as a whole, as well as meet day, and what I'm going to use to carry that over for each individual lift as we go through each lift. Because that's the thing, beyond just trying to secure and solidify a prime time spot, we did this meet so we could see how I feel competing at this lower body weight. Since once again, I've not been at this lower body weight for 2 years, since I was filling out the 83, which is now 82.5 kg weight class. So we got a lot of good data as far as that. And what I can talk about right now is a general overview. Like I said, we're 14 weeks out, right? Which works out perfectly because you guys know that I push in 3-week intervals. So we're about to have 3 weeks of triples, then 3 weeks of doubles, then 3 weeks of singles, then another 3 weeks of singles to my highest exertion of prep. And then the final, then at that point we'll have like, you know, quote unquote 2 weeks left, which works out perfectly because the meet will pretty much fall on my week 3 primary of that final block leading into the meet. So that works out perfectly, right? That's the game plan. And as far as just general things we've learned that aren't specific in any individual lift, we know that the bigger jumps definitely work just in terms of how I'm feeling, even though, you know, I didn't get my third attempts right, and we'll break down the circumstances a little bit later. But pretty much like with the squat, the bench, the deadlift, none of those were due to like the jumps being too big, because I felt really good and was able to gauge what was there based upon that. With squats, as we kind of already talked about in the meet video, it's a matter of me kind of like, you know, I oversync my squat a little bit, and there's different things I'm going to be working on to help alleviate that, which I will be talking about that when we actually get to squats. With bench, I should have just gone for 170 instead of 172.5, and it would have been smooth. That 2.5 kilos would have probably been the difference maker with my lockout being that close, right? But the bigger jumps definitely had me feeling good for that. And then with deadlift, I knew that after my second, I might not be good for my third. I intentionally bumped my opener at that point from 220 kg to 250 kg so that I could shoot for just that bare minimum PR that 5 kg PR of 628 pounds, knowing that I would not have a whole lot left for the third because I just didn't want to risk it at that point. But we know that those bigger jumps work for me. We have the data on that. And as far as kind of what we're gonna be working on with each individual lift, we'll kind of get into that once we're at the gym, which we're about to head to right now. So yeah, I'll see you guys at the gym.
Like you're not using a squat, you start. I feel like this. Now trying to like tuck your knees almost with it over the bar, ready? So
All right, guys. So we just hit 452 pounds for my top triplet RP6, and it felt pretty good considering the fact that usually I wouldn't be squatting relatively heavy again until Saturday. That I just squat heavy on Saturday and came in and have to get used to shit to going heavier on Wednesday, which will take a week or two to get used to. It felt really, really good. You guys probably noticed my stance a little bit closer. It's not as close as it's ever been, and I've had my stance very, very close before. And like I said, for me, that wider stance feels good when I have full control of my depth. And it's one of those things where actually, if I wasn't as mobile, the wider stance is probably perfect because I'd only be able to go so low. But as you guys learn at my meet, even with that really wide stance, I can oversink it sometimes. And when I do that, it just puts me in a really bad position. Whereas with this closer stance, because I'm so stacked, I have better control of my descent. So I can control right when I break below parallel and drive back up. And if I do oversink it, because I'm still so stacked, I can use my quads to push through. Whereas with the wider stance, I can't do it. So it's one of these things where if everything feels perfect, the wider stance is great. But this stance is probably just gonna be more consistent for me, like somewhere in between like my really close stance and my wider stance. So kind of similar to my closer grip bench press with pinky on the ring compared to middle finger, that more stacked position is more consistent, and that's what I need is consistency, so I don't have to second guess what I can do. That's what I learned from the meet. Now from the prep itself, you're gonna see that instead of doing like, I've had different back down ranges on my primary day. I've done 4x4s, 5x3s, and even 4x3s. There's not a whole lot of difference between what I get from a 4x4 to a 5x3. It's only a 1 rep difference anyway. But what I have found from looking at the velocity data is whenever I was doing 4x4s, my squat just felt better and more grooved compared to a 4x3. And I think that even though it's the same amount of sets, that difference in reps in terms of total volume I'm doing matters because I don't do crazy amounts of volume on my squat in general. I have my top set today, and then like 4 back down sets. Then on my secondary day, a top set, a 5, and 2 back down sets after that. And my tertiary day, just SSBs for 2 to 3 sets. So I think every little bit of dosage I can get matters for my squat. And you guys are also gonna see my belt squats. You guys know that usually we start it around like 3 sets of 10 on this day, then 12s on my third squat day. And we'll let the reps drop over time to where I think I was doing like sets of 7 on this day, my primary day, going into the prep, and then I was doing like sets of 8 on the tertiary day. This time we're keeping the reps static, like keeping it sets of 10 on belt squats all the way through, and then 12s on the third day all the way through. Because that is when my squat feels the best, from just getting that additional volume in practice. So I'm gonna hold it and keep it static. With some other accessories, it's not as big a deal. Like if I drop from a 3x10 to a 3x9, or if I undulate from say like a 3x12 to a 4x10, that's fine. But since so much of my squat volume and deadlift volume comes from the belt squats, I need to treat them similar to how I do like my normal back down sets, where I just keep the reps static. Even though my top sets undulate, I keep that back down volume and that dosage static, so I have that constant stimulus that I need for those adaptations versus pulling back on it too much. So that's what we're gonna be doing as far as my squat. So yeah, we're about to do 4 back down sets of 4 with the percentage drop. I have to check my sheet to see what the percentage drop is, but that'll be on screen as usual. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do with the squat. More like closer stacked position to where even though it's a long range of motion and can be a lot on my back if I don't control the depth, just focus on keeping control of my depth, not oversinking it, but then also being able to drive through really well with the quads, then keeping the 4x4 on my back downs on this day consistent, and then keeping the reps super high on belt squats so I have that constant stimulus. So about to get through these back downs and see how those move.
I might go back to my high top, but I'm not doing that until
so squats are done. Showed you my first and last back down set, and it felt really good. The only other two things I want to know in my squat was, since I talked about like the belt squat volume, the static, keeping that static, it's also the fact that if I look at my stance on my belt squat, it's where my stance on my comp squat is today, whereas my comp squat stance was wider than that, and you guys know how strong I've got on the belt squat. So having my stance be the same as what it is on the belt squat is gonna be better carryover, and it's also probably why I feel so much stronger and stacked load into the quads. On top of just the general idea of stacked joints, right? Because even with my wider stance, I'm relatively stacked. It's just when I oversink it, I can't drive quite as hard. So it makes sense. The only other thing that I want to note was, in the same way that I learned that the big jumps work, I also realized that towards the later part of the prep, I was going heavier than what I needed to before my heaviest week of each block. Meaning, you guys know, usually I'm kind of more under the RPE on my primary days, so like my week 1 and 2, and then I push it really hard to be true week 3. And keeping the objective loads a little bit lighter, but still within range that RPE, just has me feeling better. So for example, like if I wanted to hit something like 540 to 550, before it'd be something where I hit like 450 to 460 the first week, no more like 485 week 2, then really pushing week 3. Whereas going into the meet, I was doing more like, hitting 480, 485 week 1, then hitting like 501 week 2, then seeing what's left week 3. And even those were closer to true the RPE, simply due to the way I'm built, taking loads like that to that longer range of motion just nursed me for the following week, in the same way that taking too heavy of a second attempt would nerf me for my third. So that's what I'm trying to work on now, is just making sure that I'm as on point as possible with not going too heavy too early until it's really time to push at that point of the block. So yeah, next we got bench press. Like I said, we're doing triples on the squat and the deadlift, and then tomorrow triples on the bench, but today we have a 3-count single, then back down, so let's see what we get up to. Alright guys, so bench felt really good. 3-count single with 330 pounds. As far as what we learned about bench, both at the meet and during the prep, is that what we're doing works. Like having, my heavy day on this day where I'm doing a lot of long pause work, then some, triples or 4s or back downs, and having my secondary intensity bench day tomorrow where it's like, a top triple or top double, and then whenever this day becomes normal singles, making that day a long pause day, and then keeping the volume high as far as keeping, 7s on my 3rd day and then 8s on my day 4, it works. And the way we taper my bench works really, really well. All I need is more time to get back acclimated to pinky on the ring, since a lot of the building momentum I did with the bench was middle finger on the ring with a lot of long pause work. Now it's just going through that same process with pinky on the ring. And also account for the fact that because of long range of motion, I don't have to push the loads quite as much with the back downs, because I don't want to over fatigue myself with a long range of motion. But that felt really, really good. And then as far as what I learned from the meet day, it's just making smart calls. Obviously, I actually done 170 to 172.5, but also just really remember emphasizing driving up and back. That's always important. It's something I really emphasize to all my clients, but even more so when you have that long range of motion to go through. You can't just push up. It's like it's a J path, right? When we come down, we're coming down and forward, so I got to push up and back so that it's going to be smooth and I don't hit that stall. So that's what I'm going to be emphasizing on my bench this entire prep.
Black on black, I was fucking up. 25 on the dashboard, riding up points like a Tom Ford, rocking a bed in the headboard. New York, I took the jet to the New York store. Regular airport, stay in your feelings.
Alright guys, deadlifts felt fantastic. That was easily the best positioning I've ever had on deadlifts ever. Really? Kind of the same thing. We know what works well for deadlifts. The one thing we're changing up is that having more practice is good for me, because as you guys know, when we're in that final block leading to the meet, we swap out the RDLs for just secondary comparables, light percentages, and having that additional practice is what allowed me to really realize that, hey, you know what? When I do my usual stack position where I exhale and then I inhale the brace into that, it still makes me bias flexion. So as you guys can see now, I'm starting very extended, then I exhale, which puts me in a neutral position, then I inhale the brace into that, then taking my time with the hinge down to the bar. I'm not rushing it at all, so I can keep my back as neutral as possible, get the slack out, wedge, keep that heaviness consistent, then just push as hard as I can, like a leg press off the ground. So the one thing we're changing is I'm still doing RDLs on my secondary day, but instead of having like a top set of RDLs and then 2 back downs, I'm doing something that I incorporate with a lot of my clients who pull conventional, where we know too much conventional work twice a week can really beat you up. So I'm just gonna have 1 top set on my secondary day of pause deadlifts to emphasize the positioning and get that practice, and then 2 back downs that will be like RDL. So that's the only thing we're changing with deadlifts. My deadlifts felt great the day up. Like I felt strong enough to pull 640, 650, and had I gone with the usual plan, I probably would have done that. But like I said, I just wanted to secure the small PR on that second pull. But with that extra practice, we should be in a really, really good spot. So that's it for deadlifts. You already know we still just built to 1 top set on this day, and that's it. About to knock out these belt squats, 2 sets of 10, then we're done.
I got friends that I keep close and they let it go while I reload. Really good at hitting my book bag of my chain, get like small sound when I'm and I touch down. Shoot down low with the hands, I'm back there doing that.
Alright guys, so that is pretty much it for this workout. That's it for the video. Everything felt really good today, considering the fact that I still need to get used to my heaviest work being on this day. Things felt great. Belt squats feel really in groove. Start on the lighter end for me, relatively just 6 plates each side. I'm gonna build that up over time. But yeah, I mean, not much else to say, man. I'm zoned in. Like, for me, and I was telling my coach about this, the fact that I'm even, despite how the last meet went, the fact that I'm in this position to even be considering being in prime time, or even to be considering placing top 10 or top 5 is huge for me. I'm very grateful to have that opportunity, you know, just the building and the patience and everything I've learned and done over time to be at this position now. I'm very grateful for it. I'm not going to waste that opportunity. I'm not going to waste all the love and support you guys show me. Like, the amount of love and support that I was shown at that last meet is insane. It's very humbling, and I want to, like, you know, I want to feel like I'm worthy of that, right? Like, that's not up to me, it's up to you guys, but I appreciate all the support, so I have to make sure that I really show up and show out in 14 weeks. And you guys will be seeing what the rest of my training days look like as we go through them, but that's it for today. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you're not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what can get better. Like the video, share, subscribe, keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch you guys later.